I don't know why I'm feeling very like Enid from Ghost World today. Today we're going to be talking about the reboot of I Know What You Did Last Summer. Now I did rewatch the original before going into the movie, so I'd be a little bit refreshed. It's not one that I typically rewatch, so I haven't seen it too many times. And I'm actually really glad I did that because originally I thought you could go into a reboot not really having seen the original and still have a good time with it. And I think that still holds true. However, given all of the callbacks and the characters that return in this one, I think you definitely have to have seen the first movie to really, at least I don't know, for it to be effective, I feel like you need to have watched the original. I am, of course, rocking my glasses again today because this video is so kindly sponsored by Pair Eyewear, which, you know, if I'm being honest, is my favorite sponsor. Don't tell anyone. I just feel like I'll never go back to buying glasses the traditional way of like going into a store, because how could I top this? You guys already know because I've raved about Pair Eyewear on the channel before, but it is just everything I could possibly want in a pair of glasses. They're comfortable, they're durable, and I have a 2-year-old, so I know that they are in fact durable. Obviously the top frames are a huge plus, but most importantly, they're affordable, which is the ultimate selling point for me because I would pay so much money for this kind of feature, you know what I mean? But you don't have to because the base frames start at just $60 and the top frames start at just $25. Now I have the Soto base frames, but they do have 18 different styles of base frames. So there's going to be something that fits your face or is the style that you're looking for. And they have over 400 different top frame options. I am quite proud of my collection now. My favorite top frames though will always be the sun tops because I use these every single day. The fashion ones are super cool and you can change the colors of your frames really easily day to day. But the sun tops are really just my favorite thing. I actually have 3 pairs now and I keep them everywhere because I do indeed wear these every single time I leave the house. I have the regular black sun top. I have this, which is the silver reflective sun top. And then I also have the gold reflective sun top. And sorry if these look a little worn in. They're very loved, okay? They go in and out of my bag and in my car and everything. I love that they all stick together too. It's very convenient. So make sure to click the link in the description down below or scan the QR code on the screen and use my code PossessedbyHorror15 to get 15% off your first pair at Pair Eyewear. So did you know that Mike Flanagan was actually workshopping a reboot of I Know What You Did Last Summer back in 2014? But it kind of fell through. Honestly, I would have loved to see Mike Flanagan, his take on an I Know What You Did Last Summer reboot. He would have thrown grief in there, like the grief themes would have been strong, but I feel like he could have added so much of his like horror style to it, and I absolutely love his horror style. Now, the reboot takes place 27 years after the events of the first movie. It does not ignore the sequel, okay? So it does still take into consideration the events of I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. However, it does ignore the third movie in the franchise, which is I Will Always Know What You Did Last Summer, which goes into a supernatural realm. I have not seen that one. I've seen the first 2, but I haven't seen the most recent one. But then I read that it's supernatural and I was like, I have to see that. I have to. It's probably not too good, honestly, but I need to watch that. This is directed by Jennifer Caton Robinson, and I haven't seen anything else that she has directed, and as far as I can tell, this is her only horror feature that she's done. Obviously, this is the 4th installment in the franchise. There was a TV show spin-off that they did semi-recently. I think it was in 2021, if I want to say. I didn't watch that either. So this follows 5 friends who inadvertently cause a deadly car accident, and they cover up their involvement and make a pact to keep it a secret rather than face the consequences. 1 year later, the past comes back to haunt them as they learn someone knows what they did last summer. And stalked by a mysterious killer, they soon seek help from 2 survivors of the legendary Southport Massacre of 1997. I've seen mixed reviews on this already, and just given that, I really expected this to have a very similar tone to the first one. I mean, it's a reboot, so I thought it would be pretty faithful to the like energy of the first one and like the slasher vibe. but modernized, because obviously the first one reads very 90s to me in a really good way. Okay, I really enjoy the original one, but both of them I feel like have this tone to them that you can't really take too seriously. And this is a very true reboot. They follow the exact same formula, a very similar story, pretty much the same characters, even if I can go so far as to say that. They felt very reminiscent of the original characters. They change a couple of the details of things like the accident, and obviously they do have characters return. So given all of that, it felt kind of fan servicey, okay? You're definitely going into this watching an I Know What You Did Last Summer movie. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I do kind of wish it held its own a little bit more, because I think it relied too much on the fan service, things that were happening, the tropes and the characters, and obviously the returnees. So much. They relied on it a lot, I think. Now, part of that was within contract. So Jennifer Love Hewitt did not want to come on as just a cameo. She wanted to have a major role if she were to return. So obviously they wrote her into the script to have a bigger part. I will talk a little bit more about everything in spoilers. Okay, we gotta do spoilers. In fact, most of this review is probably going to be in spoilers, because it's one of those whodunits and slasher movies. I don't want to give away too many details in the conversation or some of the fan service stuff that they did if you haven't watched it yet, because I think it might be fun for you to discover that on your own. Like I said in the beginning, it's definitely best to have watched it though. Watch the original before you watch this one. I did bring a friend who had not seen the original, and I thought I could just get her up to speed a little bit. You know, I knew the returning characters, or, you know, I knew which ones were going to be in it because of the marketing, and I was like, it's fine. They're just coming back. They're going to give some advice and they leave. It wasn't like that. So you definitely want to have seen the original. So these movies have that classic traditional whodunit kind of slasher movie. This honestly feels like a teen slasher. So the original movie is a teen slasher, right? But this one, they are grown adults. So it still has that teen atmosphere to me, because they are young adults. So maybe it's because I'm older that it reads teen. Maybe that's just me. I love a teen movie. Teen slashers aren't necessarily my favorite, but I do love like a teen storyline. How many times am I gonna say teen? I think we're constantly looking for clues. I love a whodunit though, because you are looking at every single person and you're trying to find little details, like what kind of phone did they use? Looking at their fingernails, injuries, anything going on, anything weird. I love that kind of thing. And then you're trying to guess who it is. And I will say, I did not love the killer reveal in this movie. More so the motive than anything didn't make a lot of sense to me. And again, we'll expand in spoilers. I thought it was a little bit expected, just because I was looking at the technicalities of everything. And so I kind of knew that there was something more to it than just a straightforward whodunit. And that's not a bad thing. They were leading you to that, obviously. Don't mind my cat. They obviously were giving information. They know what info they're giving. So it's Pepe outside the door. It's not like that. It's not necessarily supposed to be that shocking, I feel like. Now, as far as the movie on a technical level, I thought the performances were fine. They were all really good. They were believable. And I tried not to, but like you compare it to movies like Until Dawn or other teen, you know, Clown in a Cornfield. And this definitely had the better performances of those three. I feel like those are the big three of like teen movies that we're getting. Again, they're grown adults, but it just has that vibe. What can I say? I think they all played into their characters really well and their stereotypes, albeit they are very inspired by the original. How could they not be? Okay. But there was something about this movie, like on a technical level, it was fine. Some of the graphics were a little questionable. Okay. There's a scene in particular with CG. The CG in this, not great. But there was something about this movie that just wasn't very exciting to watch. Like, I liked looking for clues and, you know, thinking about who could the killer be, and excited for the reveal of it all. And then the reveal was kind of a letdown. So like overall, the excitement behind the movie wasn't really there for me. It's almost like I can't really put my finger on what exactly is missing from the movie. I just don't see anything really special about this one, and I would much rather watch the original movies over rewatching the reboot. Maybe it's my bias coming out for an older film. Okay, the original came out in 97, so like maybe because that is, you know, as we say, my favorite era, that's why I gravitate more towards that. I just feel like the cinematography was better. It was a little bit corny, sure, but so is this one. But just as a story, I felt more excited about the original, you know, and like the characters in that. The killer reveal also not fantastic to me, but still there was something about the movie, just in the coloring, the cinematography and things like that. There was something special about it, and this one I feel like lacked that. Maybe that's what's lacking. It's just like that oomph. I don't know. I do this for a living and I cannot tell you why or what this movie is missing. I don't know. I don't make movies. I just watch them. It's a good movie. Overall, I give it a 3 out of 5. I would rewatch it. It just is not going to be my favorite of the year, and it's not going to be the one that I want to rewatch the most out of the franchise or from this year. No big complaints, just a couple minor things, you know? So I don't know. Overall, just felt like it was missing something. There is a mid-credits scene, by the way. If you haven't watched it yet, stay tuned while the credits roll, because that scene is huge. Okay, you really need to have seen that. So now we're gonna get into the spoilers, okay? So definitely do not watch if you have not watched this movie. Stevie is the killer. Stevie. Okay, so my original thought when this was revealed, I was like, there's no way. There's no way. It's clearly a man. Okay, I hate when they do that where it's like obviously a man in the costume and then the reveal is a woman. That doesn't make any sense. I'm not trying to be sexist, but like she can't do that. So immediately I'm like, either that's really bad filmmaking or she has an accomplice. So I knew immediately she was not working alone, because I'm sure they would not ignore the fact that it was a man in that suit. And that fisherman's slicker. Especially because there were injuries involved, and I was like, she seems fine. No injuries on her, so she's working with somebody. And what do you know? It's Ray. I'm not mad at that. I actually kind of enjoy them doing something different and like something a little bit more shocking to the viewer. Like, oh, why would he be doing that? But then the motive that they give him is not good enough, in my opinion. Like, obviously trauma affects everyone differently, but I feel like it just did not make sense. It wasn't good enough for me. He wanted to make people remember by recreating the same thing again because everyone forgot. So he's traumatizing another group of people so that everyone will remember what happened. I understand you don't want to be erased, you don't want to be swept under the rug and like forgotten about, but to just recreate your trauma to someone else, it doesn't make any sense to me. So this is what Freddie Prinze Jr. had to say about making Ray a killer. He originally thought, why? What has to happen to make someone go down that road? But after a discussion with the director about Ray's trauma, it would have led him to a dark place. He was on board. Now this is the director's perspective, okay? Ray is dealing with these feelings of abandonment. He is dealing with all this anger. He's dealing with something that he is totally buried and repressed. When the surrogate daughter comes to him and tells him what has happened, it mirrors everything that started sending his life down this path. It triggers something in him and causes him to break. Freddie Prinze Jr. sees Ray as a broken man who has spent more than 20 years running from his trauma. When he sees what happens to this young girl and the similarities that they went through, everything comes back to him being this 21-year-old boy. Now his response isn't going to be to run away anymore. It's going to be to fight, because running hasn't gotten him anything. So that was his perspective and a little bit of the director's perspective as to why they wanted to make Ray a killer. And you know what? I understand, like I said, I understand trauma is different for everybody, but I just feel like that wouldn't be the logical route. You know, I know hurt people, but it just seemed like to an extreme scenario. And you know, maybe it's because of his love for Stevie and he just wants to protect her, but that's not protecting her. Okay, that's definitely not protecting her. Even Stevie's motive wasn't really good enough for me personally. Okay, so she knew the driver of the car that they ran off the road. That's one of the changes. So in the original, they hit a man with a car and dump him, you know, to be found later, and hit and run, right? In this one, they cause a man to veer off the road and drive into, like, off a cliff. And it turns out it's Stevie's boyfriend or friend that she met in rehab, Sam Cooper. And yeah, there's obviously a whole side story to that. And I guess she didn't know because she was there that night. She didn't know that that was who was in the truck at the time. So it seems like Ray and Stevie take turn for the kills. So Wyatt's death is Stevie, the first death. Then Tyler and Ava's attack was Ray because Tyler recognized the killer. And then the groundskeeper death while Danica and Teddy are at the cemetery was Stevie because she would be the one to leave flowers on Sam Cooper's grave because the groundskeeper was off to look at the security camera footage to give to them to see who left the flowers. Milo's death was also Stevie, and then Teddy and Grant were Ray because he sustained injuries that we see later on. So that was the first time when he got cut and no one had injuries. I was like, who is it? It's gonna be some rando that we've seen in one scene, I guess. I got a little nervous, I'm not gonna lie, when they cut his arm, and we did not see that later on until obviously the reveal. And then Pastor Judah could have been either person because it was off screen. So I think there was a lot of subverting of expectations with the killer, and that's fun. You know, it's fun when they try to make it seem like it's one person. They did try to make it seem like it's Pastor Judah and maybe his, like, person who works there, the girl, would be involved because they were a little bit creepy, you know, but it was too heavy-handed in that scene when they were talking to her. So I just didn't buy that they were going to be the ones. Plus that it just wouldn't hold up. I feel like that is, he's a nobody in the movie, realistically. We did have, okay, so let's talk about some of the fan servicey moments. What are you waiting for? That line by the classic Julie James was recreated, not recreated, obviously, she's not like spinning around. What are you waiting for? She says it to Ray in the end. And, you know, it made me laugh. It made me chuckle a little bit. And then Sarah Michelle Gellar returns. There's multiple characters that return that are a little bit more of a surprise. So they digitally de-age her. She appears in a dream of Danica's, and they really desperately wanted to bring Helen Shivers back, but Sarah Michelle Gellar was like, absolutely not, because I am dead. Like, I could not be more dead. I am the most dead person in the original movie. So there's no way to bring me back. Please don't bother. So they couldn't bring her back, and I'm really glad they didn't. No offense, Sarah. But she was dead. Like, there's really nothing they could do that would make it seem feasible. And then Brandy has returned as her character Carla in the mid-credits scene. So it shows Brandy watching the news, and then Julie knocks on her door and talks about how it's happening again. She shows her the picture, and Carla's picture is X'd out. Thus, it is hinting at another movie. So I think they are, in fact, going to make another one because Stevie is not dead. Stevie is still at large. She's alive. They have that little clip at the end that says that, so who knows. I do like that we get 2 final girls in this. I mean, the more the merrier, right? Danica and Ava both survive, and I think this might be because people were upset in the original. They thought Helen Shivers deserved to be a final girl as well as Julie James. So I like that that's kind of an ode to, like, keeping both of them alive. Their final scene, though, I'm not gonna lie, the very end, not really a fan. It's very unserious and it's just very lighthearted, and I'm not here for that. I like the darker tones naturally, so I didn't love the ending of the movie. Anyway, that's all my thoughts. That's all I have. It was fine. Again, missing stuff. A lot of fan service, which is entertaining if you've seen the original. Of course, I would love to hear your opinions though. Leave a comment down below if you have watched the reboot and what are your thoughts and how you feel about the original and all the fan service stuff in it. What did you think? Leave a comment down below. I hope you enjoyed, and I will talk to you soon.